I've always been interested in architecture. I was getting more and more interested in thinking about tiny structures and how they're more to human scale. And I was just thinking about how much money I've blown in rent, being like, wow, in the 4.5 years I was in LA, I spent $50,000 on rent. And like this house costs $30,000 in materials. And we needed the flexibility to move around because she was kind of shopping for grad schools at the time and we didn't know where we were going to be. I saw the tiny house on wheels concept and it met most of those needs in this one little seemingly easy to create package. Not that easy, but you know, doable. Yeah, come on, no. Inside, sweetie, inside. We have more needs, being a couple and having a dog and working from home. So we had to pack a lot of features into this. You can see we both kind of have a workstation set up, so often we'll actually both be working here, and I do design work, so I have the 2 monitors set up here, and this is my office. But if we both need to be working at the same time, we've got a little fold-down standing desk. And we also have this table, which we usually don't work on. This is more for like eating dinner, but this folds up. So we have plenty of adjustable table space. This is our daily dance. It's like, babe, can you take your computer off? Because I really want to sit here to watch the TV on the computer, so then we got to do the shuffle and fold it up. And she's always like, oh man.
Another compromise.
So this just folds up really easily. It has this cute little latch. That evolved over time. Originally, we didn't have this, and she was like, "No, like I need another desk." I thought it would just be this. I was like, "Well, you have this table right behind. You can just work here."
Right next
and then we'd both just be like literally a foot from each other working.
That's Alek's attitude. Well, you'll just fit in. And I'm going, no.
So this is a great table, but we don't use it for work as much as we'll use it for just eating dinner and stuff. And also, we have storage underneath here. If we really need to get in there, we take the cushions off so we can open it all the way.
And we even have a little bit of storage.
Yeah, sometimes we tuck things back here too. We just make use of every tiny little bit of space we've got. And then we'll sit here and like watch TV or whatever, hanging out, watching TV. It's perfect just for doing this.
Did you build a lot to your size?
It was an interesting dance because most of it was working within the size constraints of the house as a whole, and like fitting in what's the biggest window we can fit in, but still have room for the table underneath it at the height of the window. So like that was just really fine tuning. It's pretty easy. And so like the height of those tables was adjusted, so it was just a lot of decisions had to be made about how does it fit with our bodies, and how does it fit within the space, and how does it fit within general framing and construction practices. Like everything is kind of down to like 1/2 inch of where it all fits. This doesn't even really show it, but you can see how much work goes into it and how much thought and how much processing and rethinking and reworking. This is one of my notebooks that I had. So like there's floor plans. I just drew any option that came to mind at first. Yeah. So it was just anything. And I'm like, trailer, what do I need? 8x20, cost, materials. Like I was just taking notes. How to tie the subfloor to the trailer. Because I had these custom brackets made to bolt it directly to the trailer. And then I started researching framing. Like how do I frame the subfloor? And this was like early, just simple wiring diagrams, figuring out the electrical. How do I frame walls? What sizes do the headers need to be on windows? So this is all just my kind of research, and everything changed a bit. And then, yeah, to make sure that everything would fit together, that's sort of our kitchen. To make sure the fridge would fit and there'd still be counter space left, so I tried to do that to proportion. Storage under here, and then our under counter refrigerator, which is basically the largest one I could fit that was under counter. So it's 6 cubic feet. And that's the bathroom, just to make sure that the window fit with the sink. A ton of people are just like, let's just build the shell of the house and like put all the windows in, and then we'll like figure out everything else. I was like, no, the outside is gonna mimic the exact way in which we use every bit of the house. It all ties together. You can't really just take one part and do it later. I think it's really, really well worth the time spent in the planning stages of it and not to just skip over that because you feel like really excited about starting to build. Oh, but it just keeps going. I mean, these are like different roof lines, different floor plans.
So you can just learn about for like framing or wiring stuff or whatever online.
Yeah, that's where I learned everything. If you want to do it, all the information's there. You just have to keep searching and you're going to find it. And that was just a super early sketch, which is pretty similar, except I didn't build this full down roof yet. I'm going to. I started this house having never done any construction work at all. I knew how to use a skill saw and a drill and whatever. I was comfortable with tools, but just started doing lots of research, and I just, instantly was kind of obsessed with the idea. We built it back in Iowa, where we both grew up, so we could live with our parents and spend the rent money on the house. Because if we were living in Boulder, our little place was like $1,200. So $1,200 a month, those 8 months, that's like almost 10 grand that we saved that I could put into the house. Living with your parents is another story. But no, the whole story is towing it out here. We took the southern route from eastern Iowa through Oklahoma City and then west to Southern California and then north. It was a 2,300-mile trip. It took us 9 days because we got caught in a snowstorm for a day and a half in Amarillo, Texas, which is kind of a freak snowstorm. Thinking about tiny structures, and it is our dream really to have the house with the white picket fence and the family and the 3 cars and the dog, And for some people that's absolutely their dream. But it's still an experiment for us. It's just wanting to live simply, wanting to live a little bit more flexibility and freedom. And if you're building on a trailer, you don't need a permit. You basically don't have to deal with most of it, but then when you're trying to find a place to park, it may get a little tricky. We did not have land, and we did not know where we wanted to live, and so that was essential for us. Other people just build on wheels to get around all the legal issues and square footage requirements, but we didn't do it for that reason. We just needed to be able to move it. I got the trailer registered before I built on it, so we were driving down the highway and I had a plate on it, and so from a sort of DOT perspective, it was legal, and it's within the size restrictions. But then once you want to find a place to park it, that's a whole other story. It totally depends on where you live. It depends on if your local municipality is going to classify it as an RV, and then they have living restrictions for RVs, so that's a whole can of worms. But for us, since we're in this rural setting where nobody really cares, we haven't had to deal with anything. So we're pretty fortunate. And our neighbors are cool, so. Kitchen. You wanna come in and talk about something? Not that there's a lot of room.
There's not room for 3, so I can tell them about here.
Yeah, so our kitchen, slightly different arrangement than some tiny houses have. Instead of like a galley kitchen that's all just on one side, we sort of broke up the space so that if someone is here cooking, then you can walk past and get in the bathroom more easily because it creates this little room to shuffle. So if this was just like this, then there'd be no room to walk past. So we were thinking about how we were actually using this space and how it would work with 2 of us in the house. And it also means potentially someone can be at the stove and at the sink at the same time. So we've actually got our little oven, which we do use quite often. This is one of my favorite parts of the house, is this awesome marine style propane range. My other favorite thing, probably about the whole house, is just this really cool storage that we've got. So if I pull all of these out, this is like our pantry. And you have access to just everything all hidden away. Once I discovered these, I'm like, I'm putting them everywhere. So we got this thing, pantry, this thing, this guy, and then this is more for like the pots and pans and stuff underneath. But we use all those daily. Anytime we're cooking, we're pulling stuff off of those, and it really keeps everything tucked away. So like this stove, once I found out the final dimensions, I'm like, well, we've got 6 inches to play with here and 8 inches to play with here, so how can we maximize that space around and underneath it? That's one of the cooler, just functional aspects of the house and the way that we just try and tuck things away and hide them. This is our bathroom door. It's just like a little barn-style door that slides, and then not that you'd ever really close it from the outside, but you can. Like when we're traveling to keep the door from going back and forth. That's the only large mirror in our house as well. And this is just like basically the smallest wall-mounted sink I could possibly find because I wanted to be able to turn around in here so it couldn't stick out too much. So it's really, really small, just enough room to get your hands under, but hardly more than that because you'll just drip all over the place. It's like only 6 inches deep. This is good old IKEA. When I'm shaving, I'll pull it out here so I can stand in front of the sink. So it's nice just that it moves around a little bit. I'd rather have natural light than have a mirror, so we were thinking of maybe having one that folded down from the ceiling, but this just seemed easier. This is our good old bucket composting toilet, which is actually clean, so I can open it and show you. It's not too gross in there. It's just sawdust. It actually smells good. The whole house kind of has this woody smell, mostly because of the sawdust.
So the sawdust is underneath?
Well, the sawdust, this is a whole thing of sawdust, which we'll scoop on top of it every time we use the bathroom. And when it fills up, we take it out and we got a compost pile. So there's a whole process to composting human waste, which is really simple, but most people are kind of turned off by the whole idea. It's actually quite easy. It's not always the most fun thing to do, go empty the bucket, but...
It's sometimes the most fun thing.
Okay, it's never the most fun thing to do, but it's never terrible either. I mean, I every time I empty the bucket, I think, how many gallons of water did we save by not having a flush toilet? So then I'm like, oh, this is not so bad, really. We have an on-demand hot water heater, so if we wanted to, we could take an hour-long shower and never run out of hot water. It's not a bathtub, but that's probably the one thing which Anjali really wishes she could have, is just a big, beautiful bathtub. And in here, way back in there, is a tankless water heater, and that's vented out the side of the house. Both of our closet spaces sort of mini, just stuff as much stuff in there as possible. And there's plenty of other closet spaces upstairs for our other clothes. So wait, let me just show you one cool thing about the ladder. We made it so that it has 2 sets of hooks. Just rest straight up against the wall when it's not in use. And it's just securely there. And then it just slides down this way to be used as a ladder. Here.
This actually goes really far back.
It actually cantilevers out about 18 inches. It's like basically this closet space is actually kind of protruding out from the house. So we gained a little bit of extra storage because of that. We have a queen bed, which is plenty big, and his and her closet space. Just some shelves with some baskets and whatever, and then enough room to hang plenty of clothing. We made this little scarf hanger out of another piece of that wood. So that holds a lot of scarves on one hanger.
What was really beautiful about this process of simplifying the wardrobe is really choosing things for me that just feels really good to me, stuff that I love. So no more just
quality versus
no more
quantity.
Going to the mall, and thinking, oh that's cool, oh that's cool, oh that's cool. No, just really looking for what I
just get one thing that you love as opposed to 3 things that you just think you'll wear a couple times a year. So then you feel better about all the clothing you actually keep.
I basically already had a uniform. I had already tried to cultivate that. Yeah. I'm not an excellent organizer, as you see, but I know where stuff is. And this is, basically all of it.
It's nice just to be simple up when we're sleeping, to have like a peaceful space. One of the things with the kind of just low-sloping shed-style roof was we really have much more space up here than a lot of tiny houses where it's like this, and then so you can sort of sit up in the very middle, but if you go to one side, like there's no storage anywhere. So we've got a lot more headroom up here. That's our laundry hamper. We found a little bag, and we figured that would be the best place to hook it up so that it wasn't taking up floor space and that we could access it easily from upstairs or downstairs.
Functional.
Yeah. You gotta be functional when you live in a tiny house. So Ani sleeps on this side of the bed, and I'm on the far side, so I don't want to climb over her to get down to the bathroom in the middle of the night. So if I need to pee, I pee in a jar, and then in the morning I empty it out. So that's my, It's so much better anyway. Why would you want to wake yourself up enough to climb down a ladder, you know, in the middle of the night? So I always joke about making like a little urinal with a hose that goes down into the bathroom, and then I realized, no, like it'll probably start to smell, and I'll just use a jar. But we just like figured out how to do a few little special tricks and stuff to Sweetie. Hi.
Always come down this way. And you.
Do you?
Oh yeah, I've got my little routine.
Halfway down. Yeah.
Middle of the night pee dance.
Yeah, that's a fun one. So let me show you the water and power hookup. Basically, it just looks like it would on an RV. So this is the standard 30 amp RV power cord. And we actually just have like another extension cord running from the house into here. And this is our incoming water hose, which is like this nice rubber that's not toxic. So like our drinking water is pretty good quality. And then we're branching that off to water for the compost and water for our little plants. And just goes through a simple RV filter before it goes into the house. And these are like standard things you just buy from like an RV place. I had the electrician help with this, but it's just hooking up 3 wires, you know, it's not a lot of work or anything. Phase 2, later down the line, I actually would love to be off-grid at some point. This is our 2 propane tanks. It just has a normal RV switchover regulator. They're pretty big tanks, so that lasts a long time. I don't have to fill them up very often. And our stove and the on-demand hot water are both propane. And the deck, I just added that a couple weeks ago. It would have been harder to move to tow it with that. It's hinged to the side of the house, and these are just temporary legs that I made from some scrap lumber that was on the site. So I'm gonna just take those legs off. The whole thing can fold up to the side of the house, and I haven't put the hardware up, but we'll have a little bolt here, which I can then lock it to in the upright position. So I can still, when we do move the house again, the deck's coming with us. That's it, it's pretty well self-contained. One of my favorite parts, the one thing everybody asks about without fail, is the ceiling. It's a blue stain beetle kill pine. Several years ago, during that big pine beetle outbreak throughout all the western states, it was killed by the pine beetle, and it was left standing for like 3 to 5 years. And because of the way that it dies and exposure to moisture, some mildew seeps in there and starts discoloring the wood to create these really beautiful blues and grays and even some like pinks and purples here or there.
You have a totally custom house.
Yeah, it's every inch of it. That's what feels so good about it, is it's our house. It's not just a house that we moved into. It's really our house. And that's pretty special. Most people don't, I mean, that's just not a common concept. Most people don't think that they could build their own house. Living in a tiny house, one of the driving forces was just this like deep desire to simplify my life, and I think I'm really still struggling with it in other areas, but the tiny house forces you to pare down your life just as far as physical belongings and what you feel is important, so at least it makes you take a look at that. So we've started that process in just having fewer things and maybe just sort of focusing in on what's really important, but that's ongoing.
You know, I'm trying to sell my old textbooks. Yeah, you know, you gotta.
It feels so
can't just
good.
keep all of
It feels
them.
so good to get rid of the stuff that you don't actually need, though. I mean, it's really not that hard once you get started.
It's not hard. That's the weirdest experience, is that it's not hard and you don't miss it. You just
As soon as it's gone, you don't miss it. We've missed like one thing, which is, I don't even know what.
My violin stand.
Do you play violin?
Yeah. I used to be a classical violinist. I'm not anymore, so it's. I don't know. No music.
See, normally you'd be able to just leave your stand up with the music on it, but we
it's
live in a
close
tiny
to
house,
you.
so
Yeah.
you gotta like put everything away when it's done, which makes it like not quite as easily accessible.
I'm thinking of creating a stand here. We've got these grooves. Ooh. That would be that. That would be it. It's actually broken.
Oh.
Ooh. Gotta really remember what you care about and go get it rather than leaving it out to entice you. I mean, I used to have my cello, my piano. It was so important to me, and that's something that one day is, you know, I don't know how, but bringing music back will be critical. I would love to see someone who plays piano in a tiny house. But I mean, ideally, one day, that's kind of the idea of community, is having a community space where musical instruments can be stored, artistic supplies can be stored.
There are activities that just require square footage. I mean, there's no way to get around that. They require square footage, and in a tiny house, you just don't have the square footage. So if you live in a community, then you can share those larger spaces and still live in a super practical small dwelling yourself. So that's our goal. That's like the full, like, you know, expression of this tiny house thing is the community. When you're living in a tiny house, it's an interesting balance because we have this different attitude towards stuff and where it goes and how it's accessible to us. I tend to like things really minimal and tidy, and she tends to, if she's still using something, she'll just kind of put it in a pile. And like, that's just totally normal, but then I see it and I'm like, what's all this crap, you know?
Notebooks. I'm always notebooking. I have just notebooks for every different possible muse that's coming through. It depends what mood, like what subject I want to write about, and so they have different ones. And why would I put them away? So different processes.
So like, just dealing with differences like that also is amplified in a tiny space like this. Oh, and the cool story about this, so this table, that desk, and this were all from one large rectangular table that I had back in Boulder, and so I kept the tabletop and we sawed it up in different pieces and refinished a few of the edges, so it's all this reclaimed table and it all matches because of that. So this isn't refinished, this was just how that original table was. So we got to make use of some of our old furniture that we couldn't use anymore.
What? No, we don't have a tree.
Tiny houses, it's not a problem solver. It's not like you move into a tiny house and then all of a sudden your life's perfect. But it's made things in our lives possible that wouldn't have been otherwise. I mean, just living here and for her to go to school, I mean, it just it opened up that world of possibility. I think if your initial motivation is to live just kind of simply and live within your means, and I think that inevitably your whole life is going to start moving in that direction. And this is just either a byproduct of that or sort of a catalyst to that.
You fit a dog in here.
Yeah, we had to get a smaller bed for her. Of course, she's in a small house.
We're really diligent about walking her, and we're really diligent about giving her space to run. She would go insane.
So we've started that process in just having fewer things, and we're hoping that it leads to even greater life changes and lifestyle changes over time of just really, really simplifying things and having this space as that sort of really nice, peaceful, grounding space to come back to.
Yeah, there's apples all over.